Today is Monday, the 10th of September, and I'm glad you could join us. Elections were held in Jamaica last Monday, the 3rd of September. I was there for the day, and I had an opportunity to observe the elections firsthand. I actually went into a polling station and watched the former Foreign Minister Katie Knight vote. The result, of course, was like deja vu, just like being in Nassau on the 2nd of May 2007. The conservative forces, like they have here in the Bahamas, took over in Jamaica. The trend started in St. Lucia last December. It continued in the Bahamas on the 2nd of May. And in the British Virgin Islands on the 20th of August, the government also changed. Incidentally, the former chief minister of the British Virgin Islands was married to a Bahamian at one point. And now, of course, we have the change in Jamaica. The exception this year is the government was returned in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Elections are expected in Bermuda and in Trinidad and Tobago within a few months. Barbados must have elections within a year. It'll be interesting to see if this same conservative trend happens throughout the region. Meanwhile, we in the Bahamas continue to be exercised about the fact that the government is deliberately slowing down the economy and firing civil servants. We agree with recent editorials in the Bahama Journal, which had the general impression that the new administration, and I'm quoting here, is fitted in new garb as victimizers par excellence. They also made the point that the days of anyone seen to be victimizing poor people are numbered. On Wednesday, the 5th of May, the PLP held a press conference about this very issue. And at that press conference, Alfred Sears, the former Minister of Education in the PLP, defended his record and the decision made to hire 40 persons at the ministry during his time. The government has now decided under the F&M to terminate those 40 employees after not paying them for more than 6 months, and they worked during that time. Their service is to end at the end of September. They're to be given a check and told goodbye. One internet commentator has put the number of persons who've been dismissed in both the public and private sector under this government at about 1,000. This will surely slow our economy further to a crawl. It is already suffering because the F&M has become the government of stop, review, and cancel. It appears that there's not a single project that they can see that they don't want to stop. While this did not make it into the public domain, there is a further worry that the PLP has, and certainly I have, and that is the state of the police force. The Prime Minister proposes to appoint Reginald Ferguson to be the Deputy Commissioner of Police. This is causing an enormous fuss in the force and a concern to the country. At least one politician from the PLP side, Senator Jerome Fitzgerald, has come out to say that the appointment of Mr. Ferguson should be opposed. I agree with him, and I think the PLP as a party should formally adopt that position. It is opposed to Reginald Ferguson as the Deputy Commissioner of Police. A cogent case can be laid out as to why this is not an appropriate appointment. The police force is a special place, and it should not be so politically divided or politically motivated in its work. That is why there must be an investigation into the reports that the senior police officers have been identified as PLP supporters or suspected PLP supporters, and these senior police officers have been invited to resign. These persons include many officers that were recently promoted in the force, presumably with the support of the Commissioner of Police. So it's interesting that Mr. Ferguson, who is the same age profile of the persons who have been reportedly asked to resign, is not amongst those who've been told to leave the force. And one of the persons who reportedly has been asked to resign is the new Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mrs. Colebrook, who is a woman, the first such woman to be promoted. And now, less than a year since she was asked to be promoted to Assistant Commissioner of Police, she's being asked to leave the force. Something has to be wrong with that. There must be a public explanation demanded of the government as to whether or not these persons are being invited to resign from the force for political reasons, and why they have been asked to resign from the force, how they came to be chosen, and what specific reason is being given to them for them to leave the force. When you add this to what was done to Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police Greenslade, where he was made to give back gifts paid for by the police fund, not from the private sector, but from the police fund, and publicly embarrassed, made to give those gifts back, you see that there's something very much amiss in the force. Now, the school year has started. There's been victimization in opening of the schools this year as well. But many of the persons who were involved in these shenanigans don't want their names engaged in any controversy. So we're going to leave it there for the time being. But suffice it to say that Carl Bethel, who is now the Minister of Education, is boasting about how smoothly the opening of the school year went. And he can only do so because Alfred Sears, the last minister under the PLP, did all the heavy lifting, made sure all the schools were fixed, had all the arguments with the unions, all these contentious union leaders that he had to deal with. He put all of that behind him, settled all of those issues, so Carl Bethel has nothing to do and nothing to say this year because, of course, all the union leaders also support him, they're F&M, and so, of course, the school year opens smoothly. But Mr. Bethel has to thank Alfred Sears for all the work he did to make sure that that was so and that is possible. Yet, beneath it all, the education system, which is more than buildings, is still fraught with the same difficulties and snares. The only thing is, of course, there's no problem because the F&M is supported by the union leaders, so you hear nothing. Of course, what is really remarkable was the fact that John Pinder, who is the head of the Bahamas Public Services Union, was actually in the press defending the government firing these workers that we just talked about, firing them from the public service. Lewis Carroll, the author, wrote in Alice in Wonderland, "Things get curiouser and curiouser." If the PLP had done what the F&M is now doing, firing people, these union leaders like John Pinder would have been all over us. Now, of course, it's their government that's in power. The union leaders are content to sacrifice the workers. One rule for some, another rule for others. Thanks for joining us.